Imagine surviving a brutal winter when your family had almost nothing. No grocery store, no electricity, no money, just what you could grow, preserve, and make last. During the Great Winter Savers, rural families faced winters that tested everything: their strength, their faith, and their ingenuity. But they survived, and they did it with recipes passed down through generations. Simple, hearty meals that kept them alive when the world was frozen and empty. This is the story of 10 winter survival recipes that fed families when there was nothing else. These are the meals that saved lives. The winter of 1933 was one of the coldest on record. Families had no central heating, no thermostats, just a wood-burning stove, and only if they had wood to burn. Food was scarce, money was scarcer. But these women, our grandmothers, they knew how to make something from nothing. Let me show you how they did it. Recipe number 1. Potato soup. When you had nothing but potatoes from the root cellar, this was survival. You'd peel them carefully, never wasting a bit. Boil them with water until they started to break down. Add a spoonful of lard if you had it, a pinch of salt if you were lucky. Some women would mash a few potatoes right in the pot to make it thicker, more filling. It wasn't fancy, but it was hot, and it filled your belly. And on a January night, when the wind was howling and the children were cold, that potato soup felt like a blessing. Recipe 2. Beans with bacon grease gravy. Dried beans were cheap and lasted forever. You'd soak them overnight in cold water. They'd swell up and soften. The next day, you'd boil them for hours until they were tender. Then came the magic: bacon grease gravy. Every time you cooked bacon, which wasn't often, you'd save that grease in a jar. When you made this dish, you'd melt a spoonful of that precious grease, whisk in flour, add water, and make gravy. Pour it over those beans, and suddenly, you had something that tasted rich. One pot of beans could feed a family of 6 for 2 days. Recipe 3. Fried cornmeal mush. This was breakfast for months. You'd boil cornmeal with water and a pinch of salt, stirring constantly so it wouldn't burn or lump. When it got thick, really thick, you'd pour it into a pan and let it set overnight in the cold. By morning, it was solid. You'd slice it like bread, then fry those slices in lard until they were crispy on the outside and soft inside. Some mornings, if there was molasses, you'd drizzle a little on top. That crispy, warm cornmeal, that's how you started the day when there was nothing else. Recipe 4. Cabbage and onion stew. Cabbage was a miracle vegetable. It lasted all winter in the root cellar without spoiling. When you needed a meal, you'd chop up half a head, add an onion if you had one. Throw it in a pot with water and boil it until it was soft. Add salt. That's it. No meat, no butter, just cabbage and onion. It doesn't sound like it much. But when that pot was bubbling on the stove and the smell filled the house, the children knew they'd have something warm in their bellies that night. And that was enough. Recipe 5. Lard biscuits. There was no butter during the Depression, no milk for most families. But you could make biscuits with just 4 things: flour, lard, water, and salt. You'd work the lard into the flour till it looked like crumbs. Add just enough water to hold it together. Roll it out and cut circles with a tin can. Bake them in a wood oven until they were golden. They were dense. They were plain. But when you pulled them out of that oven and they were still warm, and you broke one open and the steam rose up, that felt like luxury. Those biscuits made you feel like you'd eaten something real. Recipe 6. Turnip greens with pork fat. You saved every scrap of pork fat in a jar. Every single scrap. When you cooked greens, turnip greens, collard greens, mustard greens, you'd melt a spoonful of that fat in a pan. The greens would wilt down, soaking up that fat flavor. You'd add salt, maybe a splash of vinegar if you had it. Those greens gave you vitamins. The pork fat gave you calories. Precious calories when food was scarce. And the pot liquor, that liquid left at the bottom, people would soak them. Cornbread. Nothing was wasted. Not one drop. Recipe 7. Bread pudding. You never, ever throw away bread. Never. When bread went stale, and it always did, you'd save it. When you had enough pieces, you'd tear them up, soak them in milk if you had milk, or just water if you didn't. Add a little sugar if there was any. Maybe a handful of raisins if it was a special occasion. Bake it until it's set. That bread pudding wasn't just food. It was dessert. It was comfort. It was proof that even when things were hard, there could still be something sweet. The children would smile when they saw bread pudding. And that smile, that was everything. Recipe 8. Oatmeal with molasses. Oats were cheap. A big bag could last all winter. Every morning, you boil water, pour in oats, stir until it tasted honey. Then came the molasses, dark, thick, sweet. You pour it over that oatmeal, and it would sink in, making it rich and filling. Molasses had iron, nutrients. It gave you energy for a long day of work. The children would eat it slowly, making it last, because they knew this might be all there was until supper. That bowl of oatmeal with molasses, that got me through the morning when there was nothing else left. Recipe 9. Salt pork and potatoes. Salt pork lasted forever because the salt preserved it. You'd keep it hanging in the cellar all winter. When you needed a meal, you'd slice it thin and soak it in water to get some of the salt out. Then you'd fry it in a pan with sliced potatoes. The fat from the pork would cook the potatoes, making them crispy and golden. It was salty. It was rich. It was filling. One pan, one meal, and everyone ate. The men who worked in the fields all day, the children who walked miles to school, they needed that salt pork. It gave them strength. Recipe 10. Dandelion greens. When winter finally broke and the first greens started coming up, you'd see dandelions everywhere. Free food. Growing wild in the yard, in the fields, everywhere. You'd send the children out to pick them. They'd bring back baskets full. You'd rinse them, dress them with a little vinegar, maybe a drop of oil. They were bitter, yes, very bitter. But they were fresh. And fresh meant winter was over. Fresh meant spring was coming. Fresh meant hope. Those dandelion greens weren't just food. They were a promise that things would get better. These weren't just recipes. They were survival. They were love. They were the proof that even when you have nothing, you can still take care of the people you love. These meals kept families alive through the hardest winters this country has ever seen. And the women who made them, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, they were heroes. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and they had these recipes. And somehow, that was enough. If your grandmother cooked like this, leave a comment. Tell us her name. Share her story. Because these recipes and these women deserve to be remembered.